take up, we have done with RC phase shift oscillators. So today we'll take up the tank oscillators or LC oscillators. So before going on to the LC oscillators, we'll first learn what is a tank circuit. Okay. So tank circuit means the circuits which contains L and C components. A circuit which contains L and C components are known as tank circuits. See the drawbacks with respect to with the RC phase shift, the phase shift oscillators, whatever we have studied before, or there was a limitation because with respect to the RC phase shift oscillator, we have a limitation that it can only generate few 100 kilohertz of frequency. Also, for every change in frequency, we need to keep on changing the different pairs. Three RC pairs were there, so all the three RC pairs has to be changed. So, which was a bit complex process, and if any one of the resistance is not matching, then the required phase shift, totally 180-degree phase shift, which has to be satisfied as per Barkhuizen criterion, was not able to be satisfied. So because of that, this RC phase shift oscillator hit, and even the RC phase shift oscillator, when we rig up in the circuit in the lab also, we can observe the challenges which are faced. If the R and C values which are not, if they are not matching, then obviously what the drawbacks, whatever I told, we'll be able to see it on the CRO. So that's why we came up with Wien-Bridge oscillator. Again, when it comes to the Wien-Bridge oscillator, the circuit was bit complex because and bulky because the circuit was containing two CE amplifiers, two-stage CE amplifier. Two amplifier need to be used. So when you use two amplifiers, automatically the cost and complexity and bulkiness also increases. And also the range of frequency was limited. It was just an one step improvement compared to RC phase shift oscillator. So that's why they came up with LC oscillators or tank circuit oscillators. So these are known as tank circuit oscillators or tank oscillators because the L and C components were used to connect the feedback. So L and C means the inductor and the other one is capacitor. Inductor and capacitor. So other layman's understanding why it is called tank is it was looking like a tank, water tank. So that's why they called it as a tank circuit. Now before going on to the actual circuit analysis, we'll understand how actually this works. See, basically, the inductor and the capacitor. So whenever you have inductor and capacitor, they are known to be resonant circuits, right? So resonant circuits. So this resonant circuits and this kind of circuit we have already studied in power amplifiers. So in class C power amplifier, we are since you know that it is not able to the class C amplifier is not able to produce the complete output signal. We were giving the signal which is produced to the resonant circuit, where in the resonant circuit we were having inductor and capacitor. Just a minute. So L and C were acting as resonant circuits. So here inductor and capacitors are working in such a way that say whenever an signal is passed through this, one of them is going to charge and other one is going to wait until the other component is charged. So here we are considering two components, inductor and capacitor. So inductor, when inductor is charging, capacitor will not charge. Or when capacitor is charging, inductor will not charge. So it will be in that way. So now the inductor will start charging. So an inductor, you know that the energy or the signal, whatever we are giving, that is stored in the inductor in the form of magnetic field. So this coil is going to be energized and it is going to store the energy of the signal in the form of magnetic field. When this coil is going to be filled up with enough energy or it gets energized completely, in the next phase, what happens is it starts discharging, but will not call the magnetic field discharges. Okay, because discharging or charging is a term we use whenever it is having charges for the purpose of storing. So here we tell the magnetic field is getting destroyed. Okay, the magnetic field is getting destroyed. So when the magnetic field is getting destroyed, that magnetic field, whatever the energy stored in the magnetic field, that energy will start flowing towards this capacitor. Now this magnetic field, whatever we had, so that is entirely destroying or it getting completely dissolved. So that will be that energy is going to charge this capacitor, and you know that the capacitor is going to charge by using electrostatic field. So the energy stored will be in the form of electrostatic field. That is the principle what we use for the capacitor. So when it is going to when the capacitor is going to charge during that time, so the capacitor is going to charge to the peak value. So again, this capacitor is going to charge to the peak value and inductor is going to discharge. Hello. Sorry, last. So the capacitor is going to charge to the peak value. When capacitor is going to charge to the peak value, during that time, the capacitor is fully charged, inductor is fully dissolved, or it is fully discharged. That means no energy stored in the inductor. Now again, you know the characteristic of a capacitor when it is fully charged to the peak value. After that, it starts discharging itself. So now again, the capacitor starts discharging. The charge stored here is used to build the magnetic field again. So now this electrostatic field is getting converted again to magnetic. Again, the energy will be stored in this coil in the form of a magnetic field. So this process keeps on continuing, charging, discharging, charging, discharging. This process will be keep on continuing. Because of this continuous process of charging and discharging, we will be able to have the phase change. Phase change will happen because of this process. Okay, so by just charging and discharging these things, we will be able to produce a phase change. How much is that phase change? The phase change is 180 degrees. So what we do here is we take this tank circuit in the feedback part and we connect it to the amplifier. So when an amplifier is taken and to the feedback, we are going to connect this tank circuit. So when you connect this to tank, when the tank circuit is connected to the amplifier in this way, during that time, the amplifier is going to give 180 degree and this is going to give 180 degree. Totally, this comprises to 360 degree. When it gives out 360 degree, during that time, it satisfies the Barkhusen criterion. So when it satisfies the Barkhusen criterion, then we'll be able to get the sustained oscillations. And also, we know that the inductors and capacitors are inversely proportional to the frequency. So the characteristics of the reactance characteristics of the inductor and capacitor is used to tune the frequency because F is inversely proportional to LC. Similar to what we have, F is inversely proportional to RC, when F is inversely proportional to LC. So now properly tuning this L and C values, we will be able to get particular frequency. So this tuning mechanism by properly adjusting inductor and capacitor. This is the mechanism which is used in radio tuners. Okay, so this is the practical application. See, in radio tuners, you have a knob where in the knob, in that knob, when you will be rotating, no, that will be connected to the inductor and capacitor. Particular inductor and capacitor value is going to match. No, during that time, your radio is set to particular frequency, and as the broadcasting stations, they are sending the signal at particular frequency. That frequency and your radio frequency is going to match. Then your receiver will receive that frequency, start receiving that frequency. Okay, this is the mechanism. This is LC is the mechanism used in tuners. By properly adjusting the inductor and capacitor value, we can set particular frequency. The majority of the places where we are going to talk with respect to tuning of frequency, we will be going on with inductor and capacitor connection. So when you have inductor and capacitor connection, you can easily tune to a particular frequency. So that is what we have done in the lab also. If you, I think you remember the Hartley oscillator and the Colpitts oscillator. Okay, so if you take the the simple way of remembering Hartley oscillator, so the Hartley, so Hartley, you'll pronounce L, no? So it has two L and one C. Colpitts, call C comes first. So it will have 2C and 1L. That means it will have two inductors and one capacitor in the feedback network. In the feedback network, it will be having two inductors and one capacitor. Colpitts will have two capacitor, one inductor in the feedback network. Third, and the amplifier is as it is what we have for our voltage divider bias circuit, whatever we are having, no, the same amplifier circuit is applicable here also. So first we will take the Hartley oscillator. So the Hartley oscillator, so we'll take our voltage divider bias RC, RE. For all the oscillators, especially Hartley, Colpitts, Crystal, voltage divider bias is same. See, even the design with respect to the design also, so whatever there is in the manual, no, that design one day I will be discussing it again. So that design is same for all these oscillators, including CE amplifier. CE amplifier, you have done an experiment, that is second experiment, I guess. That design of voltage divider bias circuit design is applicable for all the oscillators. Even if you take RC phase shift oscillator also, the same voltage divider bias circuit is being used. And so this is the output you are having, and you know that for oscillator you will not have any input signal. The input signal is the feedback. the Hartley oscillator is considered. So you'll have two inductors and you'll have one capacitor, and this is the feedback deriving. This is L1 and this is L2 and this is our capacitance C. And between these two, we have to ground. So if you are not grounding this one, the discharging process, charging and discharging process will not happen properly. So that's why we need to have this discharging, this ground connection. So now coming to the, as we know that, so here already this is an P configuration amplifier which is able to produce 180-degree phase shift, right? And we are going to use this feedback network which is going to again produce 180-degree phase shift. So the total phase shift achieved by this Hartley oscillator is 360-degree, which satisfies the Barkhuizen criterion. And we are using voltage divider bias circuit because of its highest stability among the all other voltage divider among all other biasing circuits. So here two inductors will be used. Among these two inductors, to trigger the or to initiate the charging and discharging process easily. So what we do is, if you are, we will be finding out the theoretically will be finding out some equation L equivalent, but when you are going to set L1 and L2 values, you will not set them equal. One will be larger and other will be smaller. So this larger and smaller value setting is mainly because, again, as I told, to have the charging and discharging process, to initiate the charging and discharging process, because you know that charging or discharging takes place based upon the concentration levels, higher concentration and lower concentration. Based upon that only, the charging and discharging process are developing a magnetic field or destroying the magnetic field is depending upon the concentration. So if both of them are at same level, they get static. That means they'll not get increased or decreased, or the flow will not take place. So that's why in order to initiate those charging and discharging process, we will be using the difference values. And also there is one more thing, this charging and discharging has to take place because of this charging and discharging, once magnetic field is produced, other time capacity electrostatic field is uh, increased. So this process of increasing a magnetic field and destroying it, again charging the capacitor, again destroying it, this process has to happen. If it is not happening, then you will be not able to shift the signal. So here shifting of the signal and tuning of the signal takes place. So you'll be getting any kind of signal here, and basically you know how oscillator is going to generate the signal. In the beginning only I have told, even in the lab I have told, it is just a small noise which is generated. That noise is being tuned by the feedback network. So this network has to tune to particular frequency. So in order to choose that particular frequency and to give the phase difference, we are going to use this two inductors and the capacitors. So for this inductors and capacitors, we are having a derivation, a small derivation we need to study for this inductors and the capacitors. So for this, we consider the uh, what the process with respect to the, we'll be considering with respect to the reactance. We'll consider the reactance of the this inductors and capacitors for the purpose of deriving the equation. So let us consider the derivation. In the exam, they'll ask you explain Hartley oscillator and derive the expression for frequency of oscillation. So that's why you have to start here. You have to find out. You have to derive the equation. So actual equation, you know that f is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi into root LC. So L is L equivalent, and where L equivalent is equal to L1 plus L2, and C is the one we are having. So in order to derive the equation, what you have to consider is you have to consider the reactances of this. So it is considered to be, so here all of them, even inductor has reactance and even capacitor has reactance. So the condition, if you are going to get the required phase shift, if you remember in Wien bridge oscillators also, the imaginary terms are should be equated to zero. There was a condition. The imaginary terms should be equated to zero in order to get the uh, uh, input, the feedback, and the the input and the output of amplifier to be in phase. So here imaginary terms means the reactance of this inductors are the imaginary terms. Why they are called imaginary terms? Because the reactances are always expressed as J factors. So except resistance, the resistance will express it as R. But when you take the reactance of inductor and capacitor, we express them in terms of JXC, JXL, like that. That's why. So let us first we'll take that condition. So for achieving zero phase shift, 0 degree phase shift or 360 degree phase shift in the feedback network, we must have imaginary components introduced due to the reactance must be equal to zero. So that is what the condition is. So we'll take x1 plus x2 plus x3 equal to 0. So here x1 is, let me take xl1, xl2, xc3. So xl1, xl2 means these two inductors, xc3 means this capacitor reactors. xl1, so reactance is expressed as jxl1, and this one is jxl2. But for reactance of the capacitor, we know that we take the negative imaginary term minus jxc, that is equal to 0. And again, since we have jxl1 plus jxl2 is equal to jxc, we are having, we can eliminate the j factor by taking common. So this becomes xl1 plus xl2 is equal to xc. And now we know the formula for xl. It is omega L, xl2 omega L2, that is equal to xc, that becomes omega c. Now here omega of L1 plus L2 can be taken, and that is equal to omega c. I can shift this omega here, that becomes omega square into L1 plus L2 is equal to 1 by c. So now this equation can be again written as omega square is equal to 1 divided by L1 plus L2 into C, and we can take L1 plus L2 as L equivalent. So that is equal to L equivalent C. Since you are having omega square, to eliminate the square, omega square, we take square root on both sides. When I take square root, it becomes omega is equal to 1 divided by root LC. So this implies you have omega. Omega is nothing but 2 pi f. 2 pi f. So 2 pi f. So 2 pi f is equal to 1 divided by root LC. So if I shift it here, it becomes, this implies f is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi root LC. So these equations we are going to arrive. Okay. So this is the frequency of oscillation we are having. Okay. So the next part we can continue in the